All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. This is Joel Wilhelm. I'm the Director of Channel Sales with phoenixNAP. And on the line with us today is Stephen LeClair with VMware. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how we can help you boost revenues with private cloud as a service. One of the things that you're going to get a good sense out of today in the webinar is our offering, what the market looks like, and of course our partnership, a very tight partnership with VMware. Stephen?
Hello everyone, and thank you, Joel. I really appreciate being here. It's a pleasure to speak with you all today. Looking forward to supporting phoenixNAP on this call. The focus is channel development and the awareness of resources and solutions for your customers. And so, as Joel said earlier, we hope to meet all those expectations. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat. Just a little bit of background maybe on myself. I had a tech career of about 40 years, 10 of them with VMware. I support strategic cloud providers, global cloud providers for the VMware Cloud Provider Program. Actually was one of the founders of that program, and glad to support phoenixNAP as one of our strategic partners. And they hold a very unique position with VMware, and I'll go over a few of those highlights when we get a chance. But thank you, Joel. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen, for joining. And I'm Joel Wilhelm, Director of Channel Sales with phoenixNAP. And in my role, my job is essentially to support our channel partners and our ecosystem to ensure that you have services that help make you a trusted advisor in front of your customers, giving you options to deliver the services that they need as they transform their businesses. So without further ado, I'm going to talk a little bit about phoenixNAP at a high level. And if you're not already familiar with us, this will at least give you some sense of who we are, what we're doing, how we're growing our business, and then we'll get into the solutions that we deliver around private cloud as a service. So phoenixNAP, we started in 2009 as a co-location facility, and since then, it was just a matter of a year or so later that we started our own cloud journey to deliver infrastructure as a service. We did the next hardest thing, which was to build a public cloud and a custom interface, and that was centered around VMware technology, best-in-breed servers, hosts, network, everything at the time that the market was asking for. And then we quickly transitioned into private cloud infrastructure as a service. And at the end of the day, we've ended up where we are based on customer demand, based on where the market was going. We're still a boutique player, clearly not as large as some of the public cloud providers in the space today, but we are an award-winning infrastructure provider with 10 global data centers. We actually have about 14 pins in the map today, and I'll talk about which ones are still the meaningful infrastructure as a service nodes versus network nodes and things like that on the next slide. We've got world-class solutions and alliances. We work with the top partners out there. Intel and VMware have been great partners, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And we are absolutely focused on the channel. We're helping enable, we're doing sales trainings and enablements as often as we can. We do this monthly webinar to highlight and spotlight some of the services that are key in the industry. Over the time of developing our public cloud and private cloud services, for a long time we were part of the vCloud Air network, which was completely scrapped a couple of years ago. And recently we've recertified with VMware on the Cloud Verified program. It's a brand new program. It's very selective. There's a lot of what I would say interaction between VMware, Intel, and phoenixNAP in order to deliver these services. And it's a select few of service providers that are on this list. Stephen, I don't know if you want to talk to that real quick.
No, I'd be glad to. I think it is a very unique position. And, first of all, phoenixNAP is a globally strategic VCPP partner with us. And Cloud Verified is one of those extensions that we award and provide to our strategic partners that offers to customers the assurance of platform stability, consistent configuration, and compatibility between on-premises and in the cloud, which is perfect for this conversation. As Joel mentioned, also Intel Next Generation Elasticsearch as a service is turbocharged by Intel persistent memory solutions. And so that was a three-way development between Intel, VMware, and phoenixNAP being our test and approver. It was a very interesting process, and glad to have that ability. Also, phoenixNAP has been very helpful in the assistance, direction, and validation of new features with our vCloud Director. And this has been many years that they've been supporting vCloud Director with us. So we appreciate then their validation of these solutions to market as well. phoenixNAP does a great job of combining multi-tenancy with scale-out hyperconverged architecture with those latest enhancements from Intel and VMware. So you're in good hands. Looking forward to the rest of the presentation.
And some of the other notable awards that we've won, a Veeam Innovation Award, and that's part of our ecosystem here for our infrastructure as a service. Everything that we do in our cloud, we offer a managed backup solution through Veeam. So we were a customer first, and of course, many of you also know that we provide cloud backup and replication solutions for Veeam customers. So if they want to go on-prem to cloud with us, we deliver that. So we've won some awards with them over the years. Microsoft Gold Partner, SPLA licensing, things along those lines. And we've actually won 2 awards from CRN, which was the, coolest cloud vendors. They come out with a top 100 list. We're in the top 20 list the last 2 years back to back. So, very proud to see the market recognizing the work we do. We've also gotten some honorable mentions from Gartner in their last Magic Quadrant for disaster recovery as a service. All of that bundles up into our infrastructure and cloud services. I want to talk a little bit about our footprint, and this will give you a good idea of the capabilities that we offer location-wise. We look at ourselves as regional delivery of services, much like the larger public cloud providers have regions, West and East and UK, Asia Pac. We've emulated that service delivery model, building out in Phoenix, Arizona, Atlanta, Georgia, and Ashburn, Virginia. Those are fully turnkey infrastructure as a service. We do everything that we offer in those 3 facilities: Amsterdam, Netherlands, and Singapore in Asia Pac. So the other dots on the map, you'll see some of those are noted as network POPs, and others are being built out. And over time, you're going to see those become fully enabled phoenixNAP nodes for cloud backup, DR, infrastructure as a service, things along those lines. But for today, I want to focus on the 5 that are the most meaningful for service delivery: Phoenix, Atlanta, Ashburn, Amsterdam, and Singapore. Any questions on that? Great, we'll move on. So why phoenixNAP? We are a boutique service. We certainly aren't going to be mentioned in every conversation when it comes to a customer wants to go to cloud and, hey, we've got to talk to phoenixNAP. So that's really where you come in. We deliver a very flexible and cost-effective single-tenant cloud or multi-tenant service. We deliver managed private cloud to customers when they're looking for a fully dedicated stack. But we have other offerings that are a hybrid of managed private cloud. So if they want dedicated hosts with vCenter access, if they want to run desktop as a service on VMware VDI, for example, or if they want a fully shared tenant environment, we offer a couple of different flavors, which we're going to talk about. We've got established expertise. We've been doing this since 2010, 2011, right alongside of Intel and VMware. They've helped us build out. We've helped them with the feedback and the integration. And for a long time, we've been a vCloud Director. That is the interface into, the VMware cloud services that we offer. But of course, in a dedicated environment, we do offer the vCenter integration, and there's more APIs and more things that you can do with that, controlling the underlying hardware. We have a security focus. One of the things that we've done over the last 2 years is work to build data security cloud. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Or we've hardened the infrastructure. We've added the security tools and multiple layers. And we've recently partnered with AlertLogic to help with the monitoring and management of the security side of the business. So we can add those solutions into many of the things that we do. And of course, we've talked about a few of the awards that we've won. Overall, I don't want to focus too much on co-location. That's the first thing that pops out. But in all of those 5 data centers, think of it as a wedding cake. Yeah, every cloud needs a solid platform. And from the co-location facilities that we're in, tier 3, fully redundant, compliant facilities, we have then built dedicated server and hardware as a service offerings. We have built our cloud and infrastructure as a service solutions, wrap security layers around it. We deliver additional upsell capabilities around backup and disaster recovery, and of course, some managed services. I'd like you to think of our managed services more along the lines of we can manage firewalls, we can manage network, of course, servers, hardware, things like that. But we really do stop at the hypervisor or the OS layer. We do offer a patch management solution and again, manage backups. But beyond that, we want our partners, our partners, to be able to, if you're an MSP, manage the customer from there, right? Do the network monitoring and management, provide the desktop support, things along those lines. So we're really focused on what's inside of our four walls. And I think that's key to keep in mind. If there are migrations, we do have some tools to help customers migrate from on-prem into our cloud services. So we can talk about what maybe Veeam or Zerto or even VMware tools can do to help a customer go from on-prem into this infrastructure as a service world. I'm going to turn it over to Stephen real quick here, and we're going to talk a little bit about, what's going on in the industry. And go ahead, Stephen.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it again. So the predictions 2019 and beyond, just a little bit of history, as Joel was mentioning, the IaaS wave now is 10 years old. So that's quite significant in that, there's been enough road ahead of us to really establish some clear trends to what I'd consider the naked vSphere environments, vSphere and vCenter Server, which primarily is going to be the target market for, the commercial mid-tier enterprise customer and you being their partner. I think there's a very strong dynamic there in the, if I can call it the maturation or the maturity of the market, that on-premise applications have now been considered a historic fact that has to move towards a new and more flexible design and architecture for many reasons: cost, flexibility, disruption of your industries, of customers' industries. That is a daily occurrence. How they respond to that is critical. So the systems and the stacks that will be seen in the future will likely be much different than what we've had in the past, but that historic legacy can be brought forward. And that's one of the high values that VMware and phoenixNAP offer, is essentially that shift. And what we're doing is we're seeing that, many private clouds will be the first OpEx shift. In other words, they'll look at bringing subscription licensing on-premise and use that as one of their first avenues to change from a CapEx to an OpEx model when it comes to licensing and infrastructure, and then move into some of these predictions that you'll see here on this second slide, which is, at a point in time, 2025, 80% of these organizations are going to be taking their on-premise data and moving them into some sort of colocation or hosted cloud. With that said, the focus is typically going to, on the early phase, and what phoenixNAP is very capable is on the focus of backup and recovery, showing that, the key percentages will come up in the next slide here on the adoption slide. But as a cloud provider, you're going to leverage the DC optimization at scale, and the app modernization and migration will be key to the journey. So then as we get into the adoption trends, you'll see that the IaaS wave, that as again, happy birthday, began a decade ago, it's now going to focus on backup and recovery. You'll see those are key percentages on these slides. And then as we see more spending, it'll end up developing much more in the business support apps, the productivity, and certainly security areas will increase as we go forward and see the change from an on-premise IaaS to a cloud provider to a multi-cloud environment or hybrid cloud, which we can certainly talk about a bit. Would you like to move to the next one, Joel? All right, so this is, we added this slide because we wanted to give you some data that would allow you to kind of use this in your selling efforts to your customers, and understanding what the decision makers are looking for in a platform. Your role is to understand, again, the maturity of their environment, measure what their next steps would be, and then apply some of these rules or percentages to their business opportunities. And not surprisingly, again, you'll see the security right at the top of the attribute for decision makers today, and closely followed by support and integration, leading price and tool flexibility. So these are typical discussions that you may have that brings you out of the what I call the box discussion, what they're using today, because it essentially does not pertain any more than the maturity and migration discussion, right? What they've had is not what they should probably have in the future. The only person that's probably going to have that discussion with them effectively is you. So to have that contrarian kind of view and allow them to state what their current environment is, but then direct the conversation to be more strategic, in other words, driving their decisions towards what their ultimate goals and objectives will be, and again, understanding what the disruption attributes are within the company and how IT can support the business and what it should look like going forward. Next slide. So adoption trends a little further. If I look at the slide the first time, I noticed that VMware plays a key role in a majority of these adoption trends. And as a VMware cloud provider partner, we leverage most of these technologies either through our VMware Cloud Provider subscription rental program or what we call our managed services program. So if you've heard through the news, there's quite a bit of activity going on with our release of VMware Cloud on AWS, which is an MSP, a managed service provider program that helps provide a fully converged software SDDC or software-defined data center stack that would allow for portability of that stack to other clouds. That could be hybrid and multi-cloud into one of the public clouds. So these are also extensions that you'll see that we have recently at Dell Tech World announced with Microsoft and VMware and Dell, that we have an Azure VMware solution built on VMware Cloud Foundation, again, an integrated software stack for compute, storage, network, and security. These are the dynamics that will be seen by your customers and the options that they will have available to them when we can identify a private cloud on-prem as one of their first steps.
And to oversimplify this a little bit, anytime you hear somebody talking about these items, OpenStack, containers, Kubernetes, you name it, right? AWS, Microsoft Azure, these are potential private cloud opportunities where in some cases customers get the cart before the horse. They haven't really determined where the best place is for their workload. But when they think of cloud, they may be thinking of some of these larger providers first and not thinking of some of the more boutique providers that potentially have a better fit for that workload, right? So we're embracing the fact that customers are going to be absolutely leveraging other cloud solutions, platform as a service, software as a service, you name it, right? But we don't want customers and you as a trusted advisor to skip right past that evaluation stage. And if you're hearing any of these things, bare metal even can be considered a cloud or infrastructure as a service component. And oftentimes customers are buying this bare metal and they are virtualizing it with something. It could be as simple as vSphere. It could be something that they've got as a, some other technology that they're going to put on that bare metal. But in many cases, they're trying to free themselves from, and of course, this has been done for years now. They're trying to free themselves from just being able to one workload on that bare metal. So they're going to find a way to utilize it. So just keep that in mind. I just want to make sure that if you're hearing anything from customers talking about these types of solutions, to also think of, involving us in the conversation, even if it's just getting some basic scoping information out so we can talk to them and look at the workloads they're running and make sure that they're picking the right solutions, right? Why private cloud? I think it's really important to talk about why this versus that. One of the biggest reasons why customers are picking private cloud, I'm not sure if we even listed it, is they have legacy applications that are not architected for public cloud today. Okay, starting over isn't easy. It's a great stepping stone to go to private cloud. And in some cases, it's a better place to keep that rather than moving onwards. So as a stepping stone for many customers with legacy applications, custom-built software, we can deploy and customize whatever infrastructure as a service they need, matching up the server, the specifications on that, the storage performance, the network performance, to be able to take that workload and move it from on-prem into the cloud. It's also a turnkey solution. Our private cloud delivers everything built in. You're not building from components. You're not starting with a t-shirt size instance and then adding in software layers and security components and many other things in order to end up where we already are from a base standpoint. So turnkey, you're going to get a resource pool from us with everything underneath already architected. So you don't have to be a cloud architect in order to build in our cloud. So a lot less consulting goes into this from an architecture standpoint. It's easy to scale.
Quick comment.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to add that a stepping stone to your stepping stone could be colo, because I've had a lot of people that go into analysis paralysis because they need to figure everything out to get to the cloud. Hey, let's just get their gear into the colo so it's protected and has those things that can protect the environment, and then we can start working on the private cloud or wherever it needs to go.
Absolutely, David. That's a great point. We see the same thing. We're going to find, the great thing about infrastructure as a service, I can't stress this enough, is you can get exactly what you need from phoenixNAP. You can get co-location and put maybe undepreciated assets in there. You're not ready to completely move off, right? You could build a hybrid with some simple cross connects into a private cloud platform, whatever that might be, fully dedicated, shared tenant, doesn't matter. Could be bare metal, right? And we've got customers that are doing multiple things with us. So we have the ability of stitching together, like you said, somebody that wants to move from on-prem into co-location and use that as a stepping stone to then move into other solutions. That's an easy button for us, right? Cross connects, very easy for us to run within the data center, so we can stitch these things together on the same networks and protect them with our security solutions. So it's a good point.
Well said, David. It's colo, it's managed services, it's dedicated hosting, private cloud, right? And it's basically, these are going to be VMware workloads. So you will always have that opportunity to then consider dividing that up. So if I was sitting in front of a CTO, I'd be saying to myself, okay, if you have 100% VMware environment today and it's all your licensing, why wouldn't we consider which one of those apps are going to be first to put in the public cloud? Let's stretch it all the way to that level, and then back down through all of the applications that you have within the enterprise and define what their future is. Then that gives you a chance to consider app preparedness and understanding the target destinations, and then potentially the need to re-architect those applications, some of those applications, but not all. So that gives you a cost economy there to modernize that environment for a customer, bringing them all the way from colo to public cloud. And the answer is yes, they probably are going to be in all of these various attributes going forward for a while, and until all of their applications have matured to that point.
Right, and global availability, right? So
Exactly.
We all have customers that have a single data center. That doesn't give them global reach, and many more applications today require being closer to the edge, being closer to the end user. Some customers have gone to cloud simply for the fact that they can now hire employees that are much further away from their data center than they had been previously, right? So we can put small workloads out there at the edge. Maybe it's a desktop as a service, but just provide better support for people that are dispersed, whether it be across the country or across the globe. And we have built the networks to back that up, so that way customers can get a great high performance network turnkey without having to build their own networks. So those are all, some of those use cases for the cloud. Fully customizable, right? You can pretty much, we're doing with VMware, we've got the vSAN all flash. You can get very high performance all flash arrays with phoenixNAP, all powered by SSD. To the middle of the road would be a nimble storage. Everything that we've done in our cloud services backed up by some form of a nimble device. And for dedicated customers, they get to pick what kind of performance they need. Of course, we're going to want to marry that to the workload. We just don't want to sell them the biggest and best if they don't need it. But we want to take a look at those workloads, those databases, see what kind of IOPS performance they're looking for, see what kind of growth they might need down the road, but they can buy just what they need today without the requirement to plan for the next 3 years as they typically would in a CapEx spend. So we can OpEx all that and create a lot more efficiency. There's no upfront cost. With our cloud services, they're removing from the infrastructure side all of that CapEx, right? And of course, 99.99% SLA uptime guarantee with 15-minute response times. So, obviously you're trusting a provider to keep you up and running, right? We've built fully redundant, highly available hosting platforms, that are turnkey, ready to go. So customers can basically start taking advantage of a subscription model that's more efficient. And of course, why not public cloud, right? And I think that's always the question that comes up. Well, why don't I just host with Azure or AWS? And in some cases, that's a great place for your workload. It just really depends, though. So we have to really look at what the customer is trying to do, what their workloads are. If they're not powered off on a regular basis, if they're always on, right? And if their baseline utilization really doesn't go up and down too much, private cloud's technically a great fit, right? If they need that elasticity to scale up and scale down wildly, clearly public cloud's going to be a better fit for that workload. No customization is a bit of a stretch. There's highly customizable workloads and sizes in the public cloud, but you have to be governance becomes a lot more of an issue. If you need that for certain workloads, you have to be able to govern it. And if it gets throttled up, somebody's got to be there to throttle it back down, right? And to keep that in check so you don't have too much sprawl, so you don't have too much overspend when you're not using those resources. So those are things that have to be kept in mind. It is very self-service though. With us, again, we talked about a turnkey design. Oftentimes in the public cloud, you're going to be starting from scratch. You're going to be building. And if you do undersize a workload, let's say you start with t-shirt size small for an instance, and you need to go to a medium or a large, you do have to start over. I know with AWS, you're not just able to add resources to that virtual machine and make it bigger. You have to actually build the new virtual machine and migrate the data and do everything else. So there's some things that become a little bit more difficult for you. We can talk about, let's move on here. Data security cloud a little bit more. So, and Stephen, I think you had some really good points on data security cloud and how phoenixNAP worked with VMware as we were deploying this service over the last couple of years.
Well, and if I could, I'd like to maybe mirror a few comments from phoenixNAP's EVP of products, which is William Bell. He said very well in an article that with your cloud provider, security becomes this shared responsibility in the cloud. You've got to understand the security model that the provider is offering and what you both need to do to secure your systems to maintain compliance. That can vary depending on the destination as to helping you achieve those responsibilities. phoenixNAP and VMware obviously believe that marrying the right cloud service or platform and the managed services that go along it, you can obviously get much improved security stance than before. It just shows you that core to phoenixNAP's DNA is security, and the development of data security cloud has been in the last 2.5 years with VMware and support and Intel, a very interesting project that helped them be at the leading edge of what it means to have a data security cloud, because it was custom built for this marketplace. And we're very pleased to be supporting it and looking forward to having this as a leadership opportunity for phoenixNAP in your customer environments as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Dare I say next gen? The reason why it took so long is because we didn't start. We kind of started over. Of course, we incorporated best practices and some things that have been done clearly in the past and done well, but we wanted to take a new look at it. We just didn't want to deploy a new public cloud on new hardware. So granted, it's got all the new hardware. We're on the latest and greatest VMware versions and vCloud Director versions, but we've hardened it. We worked with Intel on the hardware side of it to ensure that we could keep up from a maintenance perspective on the back end, so that way there weren't exploits, and we could patch and manage the underlying hardware to ensure that there weren't security vulnerabilities at that layer. We also, of course, worked with VMware on the NSX and the software-defined networking component, so that way you had complete control over north, south, and east, west traffic. And by default, we basically look at every virtual machine inside of this environment as untrusted. You actually have to set up the rules to get the two sides to talk. There's no need to have a virtual machine or a server talking to another server unless that's an application bundle. So you have to set up the rules to unlock basically the network. There's no flat networks, essentially what I'm trying to say, in Data Security Cloud. You're going to build a custom network. You're going to build custom routing, load balancing, and firewall rules. So you can essentially have a firewall in front of every server and on every network switch, virtual network switch inside of that environment that's checking to make sure, is that traffic supposed to be coming over here from that server? And so this is just another way to lock down the environment, and it helps customers protect themselves from common threats like ransomware, hackers, etc. Right? So at the end of the day, it was built from the ground up to deliver a higher performance and security than what you're going to see out there in the general purpose hosting world. This has a PCI compliance audit done against it, so you're going to have all of the groundwork you need to be compliant out of the box and build a secure hosting environment with Data Security Cloud. Next, we have our hybrid cloud virtual private data center. Now, this is a very similar offering to Data Security Cloud, but what we have not done is done the auditing against PCI and some of these other things. So this is a great general purpose. Again, high performance. A lot of the exact same tools are used in this environment, but it's essentially the general compute node. Is it secure? Yes. Is it as secure as Data Security Cloud? No. And Data Security Cloud is only a fraction more per month. But if you're looking for good enough, oftentimes this emulates what most companies have done inside their own data centers today from a security standpoint. So you still have all the same tools. You can still have NSX. You can still do the east, north, south, east, west. This is a little bit older hardware, but it's still relatively new. Overall. So keep that in mind. Both of the hybrid cloud, virtual private cloud, and Data Security Cloud are shared tenant environments. We do have a way of providing with our MPC solution dedicated, or hybrid MPC, fully dedicated hosts and storage and things like that as needed. So I think there's a great slide here, for why organizations would choose VMware from phoenixNAP. One of the things that we have as a top provider in their program is the ability for customers to actually utilize our licensing. So when their subscriptions come up, and if they're using our cloud services, it might make sense for them to get VMware as a subscription service through phoenixNAP to get their support through phoenixNAP. We have a whole bench of VMware cloud engineers, and of course we have top tier support from VMware based on our existing working relationship. And that's going to be support, I would have to say that's a notch up typically than what customers themselves would receive. Stephen, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Actually, I think it actually even be higher, because it is a premier service with root cause analysis. It's a very complete, it's our top level of service that we offer. Essentially, it's because cloud providers have many customers that are in their uptimes are obviously critical. And so we look very seriously at making sure that we have our finest resources available to support our strategic service providers. We actually bring that down to a 400 to a 40 individual kind of team approach. Very different than dialing 1-800 and having to discuss your environment from the basics through your resolution. It's a much faster resolution model. It's a much more advanced because of the base of customers and the number of customers that a cloud provider like phoenixNAP would have. So most enterprises would not see that level of service.
So I think it's always good to draw some general comparisons between virtual private cloud versus on-prem, because to many they are very much the same thing. As you know, whether the customer owns their hardware and puts vSphere and puts the additional tools on top of that, or whether the private cloud provider is doing that as a service. But there's some differentiation that we'd like to point out between the two models. One of those is economy of scale. The one thing that you will get when you select, phoenixNAP and our platform is you only need to buy the resources that you need today. One of the things I like to talk about is VMware has done their own survey, essentially looking at licensings that they sell across all of their on-prem customers, and they have found that most of their on-prem customers are utilizing somewhere in the neighborhood of 38 to 40% of what they actually buy. So that's a very low utilization rate for the spend. And with phoenixNAP, they don't have to worry about being able to scale up. So they don't have to buy for the future. You get exactly what you need and only what you need today. And as you need to grow, we can easily add the resources that you need. Compliance, clearly we can help you with compliance around physical data center, network security, and of course, PCI compliance and things like that, HIPAA compliance, and being able to do BAAs with you, and other compliance mandates. Simplified management through vCloud Director. It is orchestration layer that gives you complete control over all those resources. If you haven't seen the latest vCloud Directory interface, I think it'll impress you. There's been some advancements made in the last couple of years that have really brought it to a top-notch self-service portal for your VMware infrastructure. It gives you everything you need. So we'd be happy to do a demo. Our sales engineers are fully trained on that. Of course, we can engage VMware as well to help provide demonstrations of the solution. Again, we talked a little bit about the enhanced technical support, and driving down cost efficiency. Buying only what you need, infrastructure and cloud resources as needed, is typically more cost effective than the typical on-prem installation that's planning out for 3 years and lots of unknowns.
And let me speak a little bit to sell with and the VMware team that is likely also calling on the customers that you would work with. Do realize that our strategic providers like phoenixNAP have a unique compensation plan for our field reps that allow them to have compensation for subscription licensing, which offsets the interest in their selling a perpetual license. And so we've tackled this challenge over the last few years, and with our specifically strategic partners, and again, phoenixNAP is one of those, we do have a compensation model. So we would suggest that that means that we have a triangulation with the VMware team, SE, and sales, working with you as the cloud provider, the phoenixNAP cloud provider, would have compensation for them so that it is a community of resources all supporting the customer's interests.
And absolutely. We've got some great case studies. I just wanted to bring up one here, and most people in the Southwest are going to be familiar with HomeSmart Realty. And they literally went from an on-prem deployment to our virtual private cloud a few years back. When we deployed Data Security Cloud, of course, then they began the migration into our Data Security Cloud solution, and they gained higher performance and of course a better security posture as well. So we have this available. I believe it's in the partner portal, so if you're already a partner of ours, access to the portal, there should be some case studies in there related to Data Security Cloud, virtual private cloud, and you will see something about HomeSmart in there as well. Also on our webpage, www.phoenixnap.com, you'll be able to find under resources many more case studies that you can take forward. Anna Maria is on this call today. You have a marketing support through the channel. Our marketing team can do co-branded material with you. We can print up or deliver digital copies, I should say, of case studies, data sheets, brochures, everything that you might need to go to market, and talk a little bit more about private cloud or infrastructure as a service. Anna Maria. Did you have
Yes,
anything?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We have everything on our partner portal, so please feel free to register. And of course, if you need anything from us, please feel free to send us an email, and we will send you, create for you anything that you need. We have battle cards as well, so anything that you need from co-branded material.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's going to be up to you as an advisor to the customer, or maybe you're sitting in the middle of the deal if you're a solution architect or engineer, to ensure that the sales staff is listening for key indicators. They're quoting a new refresh. It's a good time to ask the customer if they're also considering any cloud services, and maybe you want to go in with a 1-2. You can go in with bill of material and say, here it is, here's your refresh, for hardware, software, everything needed to build this stack. And here's a competitive quote from one of our providers for pretty much the exact same thing you're looking for from a resource pool perspective. So we're here to support you. We can help you do this without any additional engineering requirements on your end. You don't have to hire staff to manage, helping sell cloud. Our team here, we have access to both pre-sales solution architects and sales engineering. We have NetOps, cloud engineering teams. We can get on a call with a customer if they have some really tough questions. We'll be happy to answer that. We're easy to quote. Our private cloud solutions at their very core can be quoted in 5 SKUs. Okay, basically CPU, RAM, storage, network, IPs, how much bandwidth they need. It can all be bundled in there. Typically, you're going to have a 6 SKU in there, which is going to be like a managed backup solution, right? Most customers are going to want that right alongside of a private cloud deployment. We work with VMware. So by all means, get us engaged. Tell us who your VMware rep is, and we'll make sure they're involved in every opportunity that we're working right alongside of them, so they have the opportunity, again, to get credit for helping with a private cloud sale. And of course, we talked a little bit about the marketing support we deliver, case studies, brochures, white papers, success stories. If you bring in a new customer that's really interesting, it's a great story to tell, we want to help you sell more of that, right? So we'll go ahead and put together case studies and success stories with you. And of course, we have great after sales support, 24/7 customer service, and post-sale support like we talked about. And as Stephen and I kind of alluded to, if customers are interested in just shifting their spend from a CapEx with VMware to a subscription model, we have the capability of doing that through our licensing program. Any questions so far? We're just wrapping up right now, so we're getting a little past time here, but I do want to talk a little bit about how you can make more money. That was one of the key points here, clearly driving business, to infrastructure as a service and as a service has a long-term effect. The customers are very sticky. They generally don't set up shop with phoenixNAP after they make their decision and leave after a year or two. They tend to grow with us over time. They tend to add additional services, additional locations, and we're extremely flexible. So we're trying to stay ahead of the technology curve and deliver new services that are going to be meaningful for them down the road. But in Q3, and of course we might make this a Q4 spiff as well, we are delivering a 50% of the monthly reoccurring revenue back to you as a one-time upfront commission, right alongside of the normal commissions that you would receive on the monthly reoccurring revenue. So if you bring us a $10,000 a month deal, that's a $5,000 commission check that goes right into your GP or your profit, depending on how your commission plan is set up, right alongside of course, the commissions that we'd normally pay. So we're hoping that this will help incentivize you to bring deals to us. We pay better than most of the larger public clouds when it comes to both reoccurring commissions and of course an upfront spiff. So we want to make that meaningful for you and your sellers. If you have any questions about that program, just feel free to hit me up. But basically any deal that you register from now through Q3, we are going to track. And if we close that business, you're going to get the extra 50% on the MRR. Any questions on that? Okay, great. I'll open it up to just general, feedback. Any additional things that we didn't cover? these are your contacts. If you look at the map there, you can see how phoenixNAP looks at the regions. If you're headquartered in one of those regions, that's typically who your channel manager is today. For the interim, Nick Mendez, who is in the Tola region, is also handling the West and the Pacific Northwest. I'm actually hiring for the West and Pacific Northwest regions as we speak. And pretty soon we'll have 5 channel managers across the country. But these are the contacts. I'm happy to send the slide deck out to everybody. There's nothing in here that can't be shared. So if anybody wants to receive that, just ping me. My email address is joelw@phoenixnap.com. All right, Anna Maria, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, as you said, Joel, so we will send you the recording via email, and it will be posted also on our YouTube channel. So you can find the recording along the side with our previous webinars that we had during this year on other topics as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anna Maria. And just to extend this out there, we are more than happy to do on-site when possible training enablement or webinar training enablement with your sales teams, and we can get into the how we scope, how we quote, how we can work with you a little bit more closely. So if you have an opportunity for us to engage with your teams, we'd be happy to do that. These are the contacts. Thank you for your time. Stephen, anything you want to say to wrap up?
I just wanted to thank everyone for their time and opportunity to speak with them today, and looking forward to the future and many opportunities together.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.